start with, I mean, if we can't get everybody here right now, I suppose we could start with presentations and not formally open.
Yeah, let's do that for sake of time. Let's definitely do that because we're already 4 minutes in at this point. We can call the meeting to order.
Well, we can't actually call the meeting to order.
We can't. Yeah, I guess not. Okay, so let's go right into presentations. What's the first one?
Our first presentation, well, is Charles Gale, and he's here, and he's from Metropolitan Water District, talking about water supply. So Charles, do you want to?
And Jackie, just from expectation setting standpoint, how long does Charles have to present? I want to make sure we're.
I think Charles has 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you, Jackie. And thank you, Mayor Boyles. So I'm going to share my screen. So I'm going to switch over here, and then I'm going to go like this. And I think you can you guys all see that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Yes.
so you can see the PowerPoint. All right, well, I know we're joining with West Basin tonight. So I'm just going to give an update about the drought. You guys heard a lot about it. So I'm just going to drop into a little background on who Metropolitan is for those on the call or at the meeting today that don't know us. The Metropolitan Water District, we're the water wholesaler to Southern California. We were created by the state legislature in the 1928, and we were formed with the sole purpose. We are a special district to bring supplemental water to Southern California. As you know, locally, 50% of the water comes from local projects and groundwater in Southern California. And Metropolitan, we bring in water from the Colorado River, which we built and we operated. We started that in 1930 and brought the first water to Southern California, to Laverne, California, in 1941. And then the State Water Project, when we worked with then Governor Pat Brown in the 1950s and 1960s and brought additional supplemental water to Southern California. And about 30% of our water comes from the State Water Project. We serve 19 million people. Here in the South Bay, we deliver water to 6 of our 26 member agencies, being the City of LA, being West Basin, Long Beach, City of Compton, and I think I may miss someone, but we'll jump back to that. You've all heard about the drought. This is what it looks like. Each week, the US government puts together a US drought monitor for the whole US. This actually is looking at the Western states. And as you can see, red and dark brown colors are not good. That indicates an extensive long-term drought. And this was actually updated this morning at 8 o'clock. So this is kind of what we're looking at. So we're going to look at our watersheds from this perspective, but you can see there's definitely a drought going on in the western part of the US. So we talked about the Colorado River Aqueduct. We, California, share the Colorado River with 7 other western states, Wyoming, Colorado, New Mexico, Utah, and on the lower part of the river with Arizona and Nevada. There's about 40 million people in the western side of the states that depend on the Colorado River, and there's 5.5 million acres of farmland in the lower basin that is supported by the river. The river is operated by the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, and I'll talk to you about them in a second about their role. So snow conditions on the upper Colorado River watershed over the last couple of years have actually been good. But you can see the light blue is the average. We're still below average. Usually the snow peaks April 1st. And this year, the snow peaked at 91% on April 1st of this year. But what we're seeing is a drier, arid climate that is, the water is actually being taken back by the environment before it's getting into the traditional watershed and flowing into the Colorado River. On this chart, you can see the last 3 years, the water years of 2020 through 2022 are the 3 lowest that we've seen in conservative or consecutive years on the Colorado River. This is due to climate change, an extended drought, which has impacted that runoff and snowpack that we've normally gotten. But you can see that we're definitely at the bottom of historic tracking. Since 2000, we've been in a drought on the Colorado River. And as you can see, this chart shows that the blue has been the above normal years, the red is below, and then we've had about 5 normal years. So we've been on a drought on the Colorado River, and last summer, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation called its first ever shortage declaration on the Colorado River. They're concerned that the states were taking too much water out. So that triggered an agreement that was put forth called the Drought Contingency Plan. And so that is now in effect in its first year. And states are now taking cuts on leaving water into Lake Mead and Lake Powell to make sure that they stay at a certain level for the future. So we don't run into taking more water out and affecting hydro and other issues. On the State Water Project, our other source, where we get 30% of our water, this is what we're really dealing with this year. The State Water Project, Metropolitan is one of the 29 contractors or state contractors under the Department of Water Resources. We are the largest statewide. So the State Water Project serves 27 million people, including the 19 million people that live in the metropolitan service area. And the State Water Project provides water from East Bay, San Francisco, all the way down to the Coachella Valley. And similar to the Colorado River drought, we're in a third year drought in the Northern Sierras in Northern California. And as you can see, we've got the average year in blue, but you can see water year 2020, 2021, and this year, water year 2022, all being below normal. And as you know, this last year, we had a wet October, a dry November, and a very, very wet winter month in December, which the snowpack peaked on January 1st at 165% of normal. That triggered our allocation to go from 0, which was the original allocation given us for this water year by the State Water Project, from 0% up to 15%. And now we've, because of that and the snowpack peaking on January 1st instead of April 1st, which you can see in the slide, we are now at a 5% allocation, which is really impacting Metropolitan and our reliability to certain parts of our service area. And I'll talk to that in a second. But if you string those 3 years together, once again, similar to the Colorado River, the water years of 2020, 2021, and 2022 have been back-to-back below normal years, and actually some of the lowest recorded years. If you string them all three together, they're the second lowest ever recorded on the state. So not good for long-term planning that we've been doing. So knowing that we've had impacted supplies both on the Colorado River and the State Water Project, this bar chart here kind of shows you what our demand for this year. Southern California usually is in a situation about 1.7 to 1.8 million acre feet. Since it's been a dry year, it's gone up a little bit. So our member agencies are asking for 1.86 million acre feet of water. As you can see, the blue portion down below is the Colorado River that we're getting water. And then the little green part is the State Water Project. And that orange part is actions that Metropolitan's taken, either pulling water out of storage that we have on the Colorado River, or looking for farmers that are willing to sell water in an exchange market in northern part of California. But we are, and you can see the red part here, we are short 203,000 acre feet of water, and that's impacting our northern part of our service area because it's state water dependent areas. And the good thing is that West Basin is not included in that area, but the Metropolitan, we did call a water shortage emergency declaration in our State Water Project dependent areas, and that deals with both the east and west portion of the State Water Project. And as you can see, it goes from the Inland Empire all the way out to the valley and to the southern part of Ventura County. So just quick summary so we can get on to what it means locally with West Basin. I think they're on the line or they wanted to participate. This year is the third driest year on record. We had the three driest months or winter months being January, February, and March. And it also resulted in the third lowest water delivery consecutive years from the State Water Project. So we did exchange water. We pulled water out of storage to get to this point. But at this time, we are actually asking our member agencies for the first time to really cut back on watering in the state water dependent areas. If you guys haven't heard, and I know Jackie is a big supporter of this, we do have an extensive rebates under the name of bewaterwise.com. So please do take a look at them. So I just wanted to be under 10 minutes, and I want to turn over any other time to the to West Basin if they're on the line to talk about what it means locally in their service area.
Okay, Mr. Chair, first of all, we have, if you could stop sharing your screen, Charles,
Sure.
thank you. We have a quorum, and West Basin also, I don't think is ready to speak yet.
Okay.
So until I hear from West Basin that the general managers arrived, we'll go on to, we can go back to the beginning of the meeting. But thank you, Charles.
Well, thank you. And if you have any questions, please give us a call anytime. Thank you, Jackie.
So, Mr. Chair, are you there? Okay, we can call the meeting to order.
Yeah, please. Thank you, Charles, for that great presentation. We'll call the meeting to order. And Jackie, was the agenda posted
Yes.
pursuant to policy? Great. Okay, Brown Act declaration. This is more of the same, I believe, right?
We need a motion.
Okay, who would like to make a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. That was John and Christian. Okay. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you. All right, Jackie, any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we are going to add a letter of support for the League of California, or the Cal Cities request for state funding, for funding of state mandates, and which is time critical. We're also going to talk about a letter from Local Government Commission. And I'm going to remove, I can get to that, but I'm going to remove the legislative matrix from the consent calendar because there's been too many changes that we need to discuss. So we'll move that to the legislative report.
Great. Thank you. Any public comments?
I think we need to add to the agenda. We probably need a motion on that.
Okay, who will accept this? I'd like to move approval of those, accepting those changes to the agenda.
Armato. Oh, I'll second.
Amato with the first, thank you. Wait a second.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay,
Who was that?
That's
That was-
Christian?
yeah, it was Christian.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Thanks. Public comments. Now is the time and place. David, is there anyone on the line that would like to address the board?
I do not see anybody.
Great. We're on to consent calendar. Someone like to move approval unless there are any concerns that would like to be voiced?
Move to approve, Olivia.
Thank you, Olivia.
Second.
Thank you, John. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right, excellent. So we're back to presentations, correct, Jackie?
Yes, and my recommendation, since it turns out that the general manager from West Basin is coming, and so he's stuck a little bit on the freeway. So my recommendation would be to go to Lindsay Lastra from the Department of Public Health for the SPA 8 update.
Let's do it. That's great.
Hi, good morning, everybody. Give me a second. I was actually trying to pull up my slides just to be ready.
Sorry.
No, it's not.
I know it's early, Lindsay. Thanks for being nimble.
Of course, always.
Okay.
I'm there.
Are you sharing your screen?
Not yet. It's still pulling. It's still opening up my file. So give me a second. Okay, it's up. So let me share my screen.
Great. It's loaded.
Perfect. Can you see that well?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So welcome. Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm Lindsay Lastra from the Department of Public Health. I wanted to do two quick updates. First one will be on COVID, and the conversation earlier leads me right into it. We do know the cases are going up. So these are just really friendly reminders. I will always, as I normally do, share my slides so that you all have this information and not have to kind of remember everything or whatnot. But basically, we wanted to just do friendly reminders about our existing tools that we know work. First things first is masking. We definitely know people have relaxed on masking, but we really are reminding that people consider wearing masks, especially indoors, especially when you're going to be indoors in close proximity to people. We are asking anyone ages 2 or over to get vaccinated if they still haven't, getting boosted if they haven't done that and they're already due for that. Reminding people that in high settings such as shelters, healthcare settings, correctional facilities, public transit, masks are required. Also the long-term care facilities. For people who work indoors or in vehicles with other people, we really do require, or the employer must be providing a fitted mask or respirator upon request for staff. So really making sure that people know that those tools exist for their staff and provide it. And then for folks who are able to get masks or be provided masks, if at all possible, having N95s or the ones with respirators are better just because they're better suited because they are fitted to a person's face. Another reminder is what I mentioned before, getting vaccinated and boosted. That vaccinatelacounty.com is our website so that people can find all the vaccination sites are at our distribution points. So we have them located across the county, as well as different pharmacies that are hosting them. So that people are welcome to go to that website or call the 833 number listed right there to get the information on phone. If people, we are at this point, because again, we have COVID cases increasing, we are reminding people to get tested if they are sick, if they are exposed because they know somebody that they were around, or before going into indoor gatherings. As we're coming up to the holidays, summer breaks, people are going to be gathering. So just reminding folks to make sure to get tested. There are 3 great ways to get tests. Some of them very easily done at your home. So the first bullet here, ordering up to 3 sets of free at-home tests. That's actually from the federal government. So people can go to covidtest.gov or call that 800 number to get 3 tests provided to them at their homes. The second bullet here is actually through health plans. So people who have insurance can actually contact their health plans and request at-home test kits. And they can get up to 8 free test kits per month per person who has that insurance. And then the third bullet is for people who don't have insurance or can't reach out to the government, the county also is providing home test kits. They can call the 211 number. They can also call our 844 number listed there on that third bullet under get tested, or visiting us on our website. And then the third kind of highlight we want to focus here is for people if they potentially are sick. There are the therapeutics, and that's something that I talked about a little bit before. Making sure that people who aren't sure if they should get maybe therapeutics can contact us and talk to a public health nurse to really kind of get a better sense of what should they order some therapeutics if they don't have a healthcare provider. And so again, that can be at our phone number listed at the bottom under the therapeutics bullet or highlight at 833, that 833 number. So I'm sure all you heard this week, children can now get the booster shot. So children 5 to 11 years old have the ability now to get the booster if they've already received their full vaccination schedule. We do want to say, kind of just highlight some key points. 90% of children that are not vaccinated have been will have the ones that aren't hospitalized. 90% of them were unvaccinated. So vaccination continues to be a key tool strategy for us to combat COVID and the severity of it, as we've heard many discussions, right? We definitely want to remind people that that there is a lot of security from the FDA, just following up on studies, making sure that is secure. And then the boosters, on my third point there, they are available at various county sites, as well as many other pharmacies and whatnot. So again, people can be referred to our vaccinatelacounty.com website to get the information of where those sites are located. And then for traveling, The holiday break weekend is here, so just some reminders. There have been some updates around testing for people traveling. For people who are going to be traveling domestically, we are recommending, or the CDC is recommending, that people get tested as close as they can up to less than 3 days before their scheduled travel, regardless if they are vaccinated, and to be tested after they travel and they return, anywhere from 3 to 5 days after the return home. So for people, and this is domestic, for people who are going to be traveling internationally, they should definitely visit the CDC's website, because it really depends on if you're going to be doing a cruise or air travel. Different scenarios take on different kind of requirements. But regardless, when it comes to traveling, make sure that the best tool is to be vaccinated, to wear your mask or respirator during public transit, meaning in the airplane or on trains, subways. If people are sick, please stay home, get tested. We are definitely seeing COVID cases. So, what you have could be COVID. And then obviously, like I mentioned before, for anyone traveling internationally, visit the CDC website. Sorry, went back. So those are my COVID updates. The next piece, I just wanted to do a friendly reminder. We are kind of getting back to our normal work, as I've been mentioning a few times now. Our reminder is that our Center for Community Wellness at our Curtis Tucker Health Center in Inglewood is very much open and alive. We are hosting various programming. This center, again, is open for the community to gather, to get resources, to participate in different activities. Our hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 to 4:30, Tuesday evenings when we have programming, and Saturday when we have programming. And what does that kind of look like? Programming can be anywhere from mental health, substance use services, and health and wellness. And so we have 3 arms to our wellness community, or the Center for Community Wellness, which is what the title is of our center. Mental health, we partner with Department of Mental Health, who are hosting various workshops. Eventually, we will have a clinician on site to be able to really lead some more meaningful work, but we can also do a lot of referrals to the Department of Mental Health. Substance use services, we have substance abuse counselors hosting educational workshops, talking to people about overdose, how to get an naloxone kit, all of the things all of these topics that we are talking a lot about around the substance use increases that we're seeing. And the health and wellness really encompasses everything else. We've hosted nutrition programs, etc. So I welcome all you to contact us to get more information, and I'll share how you can do that in a moment. This is just some pictures of what space looks like. We really wanted to make this a very welcoming space. We've been partnering with different agencies to bring in their lessons, their programming here. So I wanted to just share what this looks like. And if anyone has any ideas, you're welcome to reach out to me, and we'll definitely see what we can do to partner. The main thing that we ask for is that whatever we provide, it's free for the community. There should be no cost. Everything is meant to bring in resources and really address the gaps that we identify, such as food insecurity, immunizations, etc. So we really are trying to bring kind of everything to this one space for the community at no cost. So I was mentioning, this is a very bad image. You won't be able to read it all, but the QR code there will, if you take a picture of it, or if you use your camera, that takes you to the link of this calendar. We update the calendar every month with our programming. As you can see, all the little letters here, really, we have a lot of programming going on. From that, and that includes our substance use programming, our mental health programming, and the health and wellness. And we want to keep adding to this. So if any of you have any partners that you think would be great to partner with us, please have them reach out to me. How do they do that? Actually, let me get there first. So have them, you can share, again, I'll be sending you these slides, so you can just click on the, use your camera, get to the QR, get the link from there. And then have them connect with me. But you can also just have them directly email me, and I'll connect them that way. So this is how you can have folks, organizations reach out to us to partner with us and provide services. This is just a quick little calendar of our substance use classes for the month of June. Again, there's another QR code. You can use that to just kind of download the calendar and register for those classes. Finally, for anyone, and that includes, I think most of you might already receive this, but we do have our listserv where we communicate frequently, not just our Center for Community Wellness, but all of the resources, everything that's going on We are communicating through our main listserv, so I do invite you all to join if you haven't yet. And that is it. I always try to keep it neat and tidy. So any questions?
I have a quick question, Lindsay.
Yeah.
Thank you for your report. I wonder, and I know that probably Drew keeps you to a certain time frame, so you're trying to keep it short. But if you wouldn't mind throwing in maybe a little bit more things like what's going on with the mental health issues and other big health issues in addition to the COVID updates, that would be great.
Sure. You know, when I meet, so I'm part of the health work group, and we definitely dive into a lot of this more meaningfully. Maybe I can talk with the health work group to see how do we maybe present some of the stuff that we're discussing there here. And Jackie's nodding her head. I think that's really what that health work group is really trying to do, is kind of diving into it a lot more. So we'll definitely bring that back to that group and see how we start linking some of that information we're doing there here.
That'd
I
be
love it.
terrific. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, I will stop sharing and I'll send my slides.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lindsay. Great stuff. Appreciate it.
I still don't see the general manager. EJ, tell me if I'm wrong, but if not, Mr.
I apologize. He's not here yet, but he said he's getting close. He was driving up to Northridge.
Okay,
I have-
well, we can move on and we'll come.
Okay.
If you in the chat, just let me know when he gets here.
Will do.
Mr. Chair, if you want to go on to transportation report.
please.
Steve Lance.
Yes, please.
Steve.
Okay, here I come. Yep. Come on, where's my face? It keeps turning off. One more time. Darn.
Okay, well,
Let me just talk. Here I am. Okay. At the Metro Board meeting this morning, it was another 5-hour meeting. So it went into the mid-afternoon. They approved the Measure M Subregional Equity Program guidelines. Some of you know that we have a fairly sizable subregional equity program. The problem is they haven't yet decided what to do as in that program over the next 5 years. So they'll come back to us, I believe, in October. Right now, our program is scheduled for 2043. And we've been asking them to accelerate it so that we can get the Centinela grade separation funded and move forward on the money that we're going to give to the Crenshaw project. So that doesn't get delayed. But in order to do that, we need to get the money from Metro. So we've got program guidelines, but we don't have a spending plan, and they'll come back in October for that. Secondly, the board approved claiming or applying for $51 million in state cap and trade, low carbon transit operations program funding for the Crenshaw line and for the Fairless System initiative. Now, again, we don't know how much of that money is going to go for the Crenshaw line versus how much of that money is going to go for FSI. Remember, the FSI is a fair subsidy program that needs additional funding. They're going to, there was an amendment by Mayor Butts to have staff report back in August on the Crenshaw line operating needs, cost needs beyond this coming fiscal year, FY 2023. He wants to ensure that this funding that comes in is available to fully fund the operations of the Crenshaw line. And LC Top being a state fund is flexible, so it's a good source for us to use. Third thing that came up, some of you may have been aware of or involved in discussions over the last decade on the I-710 South project. It was a capacity improving project that Metro at the board today determined that it was going to approve the no project alternative in the environmental documents. That ends this 10-year program to try and approve capacity improvements on the 710. Instead, they're going to take the $750 million that was available for those improvements and spend it on projects that benefit the surrounding communities and reduce the impacts of the current. So rather than expand the program, they're going to mitigate the current impacts in the communities. They're also going to use that $750 million as a match to state and federal funds to have a more robust program than could be funded just with the local funds. The next thing that they did was they approved the Metro budget. $8.8 billion. No questions. There was one amendment in that at the very end. Board member Solis proposed an amendment that was approved to use a 30 million surplus on the 5760 project out in the San Gabriel Valley for non-highway projects in the San Gabriel Valley. This creates an interesting precedent when you take a look at the fact that Metro is moving around the 710 money, and Metro now in the same meeting is moving around the other money. So if by some chance we had a surplus on one of our major capital projects, we too could come back to them and ask that that money be retained in the South Bay and used for apparently non-highway uses, although the Measure M program is a highway program. So I've asked the question, Metro staff, what kind of projects are eligible for these highway project funds? And I'll report back if I get an answer soon. The other big issue that's been percolating over the last few months and finally came to a head today was the issue of the safety contingency plan for law enforcement. If you recall, there's been a lot of posturing, particularly by the LA County Sheriff, as to he would like to take over the entire policing of all the entire Metro program. The city of LA and Long Beach didn't really like that proposal, nor did the Metro board, frankly. So the contingency plan now is the board approved a motion to delegate authority to the chief executive officer to take any and all actions necessary and appropriate to implement the contingency plan if the county sheriff fails or refuses to meet its obligations under the contract. The county then, I'm sorry, the sheriff then said that they will meet those obligations in the 1-year extension and they'll comply with the current scope. They're not going to change it. So the board didn't abandon this contingency plan. They still adopted it because there's some skepticism as to whether the sheriff will actually implement what he has promised. The other thing that came up was interesting. Turns out the sheriff is only allowed to enforce penal code violations. They're not allowed to enforce Metro's code of conduct violations since that's not part of the penal code. And so the board was made aware of that fact. And in fact, law enforcement agencies are not allowed to do code of conduct, quality of life kind of issues. So that was a surprise. And there will likely be more discussion of that in coming months as Metro takes a look at what its ambassadors can and should do versus what the sworn officers can and should be doing. Like the sworn officers apparently are not allowed to deal with fare enforcement. So they have to deal with crimes that are being committed rather than those kinds of policy issues that Metro has as its own responsibility. So there's much work to be done, but we did make progress, I think, over the last meetings, which were just confrontational, I think, rather than improving things. So that's the summary from Metro. Are there questions? Or is Jim Butts on it? Because
I have a question, Steve.
sure.
Who does enforce code of conduct violations?
Metro has a growing cadre of ambassadors, and they're the ones who are supposed to take care of code of conduct problems by asking people to leave the bus and act normally and not smoke and not expose themselves to other.
So are these people currently active? Are they there already in place?
There is an ambassador program that's currently active, and it's going to be supplemented. Metro approved expanding it in the next year's budget as well, adding additional ambassadors.
So these are people who, I mean, if someone violates one of the codes, they do what? They just politely
They ask them to leave the bus.
I see.
Or leave the train. But they don't have arresting authority, I don't believe. Jackie, you're muted.
Do you want to go on to the Transportation Committee?
Goodness.
Or David, can you do the
Yeah,
transportation?
I
Yeah,
can do it
let
real quick.
David do it. He's got the agenda. He can pull it up.
Yeah, pretty quick meeting there. We approved the Measure M MSP annual program amendment for the Palos Verdes Estates project, which you guys approved on the consent calendar. There was a presentation by Metro staff on their Crenshaw line operating plan. We learned there that their staff will not be making a recommendation until early next year. They'll be coming back to our committee late summer as they get ready to make that recommendation. So we'll probably be taking a position sometime around then. And that was about it.
Okay, then does somebody want to go on to the letter that we have? We actually have also sent a corrected letter. And maybe you can explain that, David, or Steve.
So Metro has been going through a process to develop an I-405 comprehensive multimodal corridor plan, CMCP, that would set them up to qualify for SB1 Solutions for Congested Corridor funds. To qualify, you have to have one of these plans adopted. There's a lot of data and research into travel patterns to help develop selection criteria for potential grant applications down the road. So this letter pretty much is touching on that process and highlighting a couple things that we'd like to see either bring to their attention or perhaps change. One is about our local travel network project. It's on their list, but the way they have it ranked, we think it should be ranked a little bit higher. We feel it meets a lot of the goals that they're trying to achieve, and we think it could be replicable in other parts of the corridor. And just so you know, this corridor is the entire length of the I-405 from county border to county border, and 3 miles on either side of the freeway. So it's a huge portion of the county. Travel patterns in there seem to be pretty close to what travel patterns are here, lots of local trips. And so we think there are areas that our local travel network idea could be done elsewhere. And we want to make sure that they're not putting it too far behind on the list. Getting on the list doesn't mean you get money or anything like that. It's just a consideration. And then we also want to make sure that they're prioritizing some of the major rail kind of improvements, green line platform extensions, power upgrades, the Sentinel grade separation. And I think that was it in the letter. So it's just a comment letter, pretty much. This is on the draft plan. They'll be having a final plan later this year. And if anything is substantially different, then we'll comment on that letter or that plan as well.
And the letter is on page 111 and 112.
Well, it's also a, we should put it in the chat, the revised one, because there were some typos in the one in the packet. But, and also, I don't know, I asked Nat, we sent the chair an email with all of these attachments. If you'd like, we can send it to all of you, an email with all of the attachments that are in the chat. So.
And we're asking for approval on the
yeah, any
the letter.
questions or comments before we move approval? Okay, would someone like to move approval?
So moved.
Thank you,
Second.
Christian. Very active this evening. Who was the second? Barry? Thank you.
Barry.
Okay. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great. Thank you, staff.
You're welcome.
Okay.
And I
So-
see Mr. Reed is just hopping on now. If you want to go back.
Oh, really? Okay, I didn't see that.
He just admitted him.
Okay. EJ, did you want to introduce Mr. Reed?
And Jackie, same thing. Can we just set some expectations in terms of time of the presentation?
Well, we've told all of our speakers, and Mr. Reed has the major presentation, so he's 20 minutes, and he's the brand new general manager at West Basin Municipal Water District, so we're absolutely delighted to have him here this evening. And I don't know if EJ, you want to introduce?
Just to be clear, is that 20 minutes for him or 20 minutes plus questions at the end?
I can't tell how many questions we're going to have. We try to ask them to do all of the everything in 20 minutes, but it's very hard to anticipate what questions there may be.
I only asked because I saw a lot of slides, so it's a big deck. So, Mr. Reed, if you could be as concise as possible, we'd really appreciate it, and to allow time for questions. Thank you. And welcome.
Hello.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Reed.
Hello. Hello. Good evening. I'm just hearing my name being referenced as I was logging in. I sorry I missed the maybe the full sentence of what was being said, but I think I caught the be brief.
And the other part was, we're delighted to have you.
Okay, well, you know what? Thank you for that part too. And glad to be with you. Sorry for my tardiness, but I had a 405 to deal with. And so for those of you who may be familiar with that particular conveyance, it doesn't flow as freely as one would like. But having said that, I'm happy to be here with you today. My name is Greg Reed, the newly appointed General Manager of West Basin Municipal Water District. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I'm a registered civil engineer, focusing on water resources management and engineering. Have the pleasure of having worked with the City of Los Angeles for 30 years. 20 of those have been with the Department of Water and Power in various roles, including water resources, groundwater, construction management, project management, program management, environmental programs, working with stakeholder groups, and doing some pretty interesting work over the course of that period. And part of that was also working with our groundwater community in the South Bay. So I had the opportunity of representing Los Angeles on the West Basin Municipal, the West Basin Water Association, which is the group that comprises many of the city agencies who have interest in the groundwater basin and have interest in, the supplies that West Basin makes available through, the Metropolitan Water District. And so during that time, I had the pleasure of, meeting EJ Caldwell, who was, in my best estimation, was kind of like a rock star. And who knew at that time, this was back in 2016, 2015, that, a handful of years later, I'd be, working alongside EJ and his great team of water policy professionals that do all the important work of keeping a pulse on our legislative activity and all things, in terms of water supply resiliency and conservation and all of that. So, enough about me. I'll go ahead and kind of get into the presentation here. Thank you to my team for putting this together. So, the mission of West Basin is to provide a safe and reliable supply of high quality water to the communities we serve. So that's, the guiding principle of everything we do. And this, of course, is our, board of directors representing each of the divisions within our service area. So perhaps you have your favorite among the five. I will say that I cannot have a favorite. I love all of them equally. They're like my, I won't say my kids, they're like my uncles and aunts. All right, so with that, moving right along, of course, the 5 divisions that comprise our service area represents 17 cities and county areas, as north as Malibu and Topanga, and as far south as the Palos Verdes Peninsula, and, the various communities in between. And perhaps many are represented, here today. And I'll tell you that, I grew up in the district. I can see the small area of Athens next to Hawthorne, Westmont, unincorporated county area where I grew up, and Carson, where was my second home, as a kid. Today I live in Northridge, where I went to school and met my wife, and and I'm raising a family. Okay. So this first slide, just real quick, I think we're all cognizant of the severity of the water supply conditions here in California. I am sure that our metropolitan colleagues have touched on, the very key issues surrounding, these factors. And, from the waste basin standpoint, it's really a time for all of us to act with urgency to ensure that we can extend the remaining supplies that are available to us as far as we can. In a meeting EJ and I were in earlier this morning, there seemed to be a lot of talk happening about the very limited supplies on the state water project. And it's pretty severe, and I don't want to get into, exactly what that might look like. Perhaps maybe that was described earlier, before I got on the call, but it really is a serious situation with our state water project. And the Colorado River, while it isn't as a dire condition, is not without its challenges. So it really is a time for us to act with urgency, and that means conservation. I like to point out how the region has really responded to this call over the past decade or two. And, the marvelous metric that, our Southern California region uses the same amount of water today that we did in the 70s, even though we're like 1 million people more. And that's really a testament to each of our constituents who have responded to the call to conserve and use water more wisely. Can we do more? Yes. Where is it going to come from? Outdoor watering. And so we have to do everything we can to extend our limited supplies at this urgent time. Let's go on to the next slide. Okay, and so it looks like these are a few headlines, and I think it just kind of really just continues to emphasize the urgency that I think I just covered. So just moving forward, again, kind of the snow conditions, and I trust that our metropolitan colleagues had covered, these factors as well. Yeah, so the pictures that just kind of illustrates, the state water project, Lake Oroville, and Lake Mead and Powell on the Colorado River, historic lows. Moving forward, storage levels, again, I trust that these were covered by our metropolitan colleagues in the interest of time. So state action. So, the governor called for a 15% voluntary water conservation. Drought emergencies, have been declared across all of the counties in California, with the allocation of the state water project changing from 0 to 5, and back down to, I think it was what the final allocation was 5%. I mean, it just illustrates the continuing urgency. And I think more importantly, we've had some recent announcements, and maybe the next slide covers it, is the announcements from our own Metropolitan Water District to really, step up our efforts to go to 35% reduction. If we go from a volumetric approach towards reducing our water consumption, or perhaps making the communication a lot more simple, let's go to 1 day a week watering. And this is really targeted towards the state water project dependent areas. With the mayor's Garcetti's announcement of going to 2 days a week watering, that's a volumetric approach with the intention of achieving the 35% reduction. What I would like to encourage for this team is to also be in step with a 2 day a week water restriction for our region. We're not a state dependent, area per se, but this is the right thing to do at this moment, in this situation. So with that, you could see here that West Basin itself had declared a level 3 water supply contingency plan back in November, which means that we want to achieve a 21 to 30% reduction in our district. We're not there. We haven't achieved that. We were early adopters of urgency with that declaration, but now's the time. Let's go forward. This, I believe, illustrates the amount of reductions that we've been able to make within our various communities. And I will just kind of call on EJ to maybe highlight a few of the relevant facts here, if you may.
Greg, I think that what this shows is that we are reducing. We are doing a good job. And I think that when you look at these numbers, with the exception of the city of El Segundo, and I'll touch on them in a second, we can see a decrease in demand. But what this shows is that now we need to really look at ourselves in the mirror and find out what we can do with outdoor water conservation to really make an impact. I always point this out because we have a great partner in the city of El Segundo. They are the only city that we're aware of in the state of California where 50% of their demand is met through recycled water. And really the impact at the Hyperion facility and water quality coming to West Basin has really impacted our ability to deliver recycled water in that city, specifically to Chevron. And when you utilize that much recycled water and you can't meet that demand through recycled water, you're going to see a spike. And so that's why you see that, those high numbers there. And we've communicated that to the state board. Again, we have great partners throughout the South Bay, and El Segundo is one of those cities that have done everything we've ever asked. So we always try to highlight the fact that you see their numbers going up, and there's a reason for that. But this just shows that we're doing some great work, but there's more to be done.
Yeah, and perhaps, it's a friendly rivalry to see who can be the most califragilistic. All right, so with that, the state board recently enacted a decision to suspend irrigation of non-functional turf, otherwise also called ornamental turf, for our commercial, industrial, and institutional water users. So that means that, if the landscaping is not for, activities such as golf or, ball fields or things of that nature, then the irrigation for those ornamental turf needs to discontinue. So we as governmental leaders, institutional leaders need to perhaps, work with our CII constituents to help them abide by the state board's directive. Okay, I think we all are familiar with, the wasteful water uses that are already on the books and prohibited. And so I would like to say that perhaps the opportunity that we have to work together as a community is to remind, our residents to abide by those restrictions. And so, working together to put, messaging out there through social media, through our news media, print media outlets, through signage, the various channels that we have to communicate. I believe many of our municipal agencies perhaps have next door media channels to reach our homeowners associations and various groups. And so just being all in to remind all of our residents to rise to the occasion. As I mentioned earlier, we have gotten to where we are now entirely because of the response by our customers. And so, we're going to count on them to rise to the occasion again. And so it's just a matter of us encouraging that and giving them the tools to be successful in that. So this particular, slide, I would say, is just a reminder of something that we already know. And, I think it's already kind of built in, but, reminding our customers to abide by that, I think will be helpful. Okay, so, as far as West Basin actions, I already mentioned the reduction of 30%, that's our level 3 shortage. You know, the 2-day per week watering is a really great, kind of share the pain, if you will, with our neighboring communities. You know, to the north, we have Las Virgenes Water District, Callegas, to the east and to the northeast, we have City of Los Angeles, and certainly to the farther east, there's basically 6, districts who are impacted by the state water project shortages. By us being locked in step, in particular with LA Department of Water and Power, helps to simplify the overall message and to leverage the mass communication that they will be doing around that, and to maintain a consistency between our part of, the West Coast Basin in collaboration with what the larger messaging may be coming from LA Department of Water and Power. I think I just mentioned the ornamental turf prohibition. So this coordinated advertising effort is the key thing. So with that, the 5th item here is maybe the ask. And so my request is to allow for myself and our division directors and my team here to, join your city council meetings and provide a similar briefing, and to, request that we, provide a holistic response to these drought actions, to these drought response actions in a collaborative manner. So I would like to reach out to you separately to arrange for a time when we can meet with the city council and to promote, the very responses that we're talking about this evening. Okay, so a few key dates here. So June 10th, all water suppliers must implement a minimum all demand reduction actions aligned with a 10 to 20% shortage. So that's a level 2 enactment. Let's see, July 1, all urban water suppliers must submit final annual water supply and demand assessments. From July to August, the governor expects to reconvene with major water industry stakeholders to review water savings progress with possible consideration of mandatory statewide water use restrictions. So this will be the kind of the litmus test when we get the governor's review of our performance, and there is talk of further reductions based on the response. And so if we act now, perhaps the litmus test will be, in our, kind of favorable. But if there's a failure for Californians to rise to the occasion, then the mandates only are going to become, much more severe. Of course, we can only do what we can do, and it's messaging, it's providing the tools, the, turf removal rebates, things of that nature. But, this is what's on the horizon, is the evaluation, come summer. And the expectation is when the water picture is looked at for the next water year, it's likely that the state water project will not be able to provide anything different than what we're seeing right now. And the Colorado River Aqueduct may even be in a worse state as well. Fortunately, Metropolitan has done quite a bit in the way of, building up storage. But even that is, going to be limited in being able to sustain, the metropolitan service area. So with that, we have to do everything we can. So late summer, early fall, let me just, if we could go back to that last point, Metropolitan expects to revisit the water demand and supply data for state water project dependent areas with increasingly restrictive actions possible later this year. So I guess, I kind of made that point just a moment ago that, as we evaluate the performance, there's likely to be tightening of what we can do in terms of available water supplies. Okay, so again, West Basin is here to help. We want to work closely with our partners here to push the messaging to our constituents, but we also want to bring the tools that are available to help our customers respond and to have some level of financial relief. And so that starts with our rebate incentive programs. And I like what EJ has told me, is that you will not find a more attractive rebate offer than $4 per square foot for removal of turf. And so in this case, it's targeting our municipal facilities. And so this is a great opportunity for our governments, our municipal agencies to lead by example. And so we can provide the tools necessary, in this case funding, to allow municipal turf to be removed and to be replaced with California-friendly landscape. So again, the opportunity is to lead by example, and hopefully that will catch the eye and the buzz of your constituents within your communities. We also have free design professional assistance. So if you want to avail yourself of that, that can be also provided to just, help facilitate a rapid implementation of these measures, in the municipal space. Going forward. Okay, so here, now we're targeting the residential and the commercial. And so again, you have a very attractive offering, $3 per square foot. And again, these materials can be provided in our branding, in our marketing, in our push to the communities through social media, print media, signage. And so this is where we really want to work together as a team to strengthen our collaboration and our messaging to the public.
Mr. Reed, sorry to interrupt. Is this it? Last slide looks like.
This is it. Yeah,
Right.
so just in time. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for your time and allowing me this opportunity to attend the meeting. This is my first time here, and I appreciate having an opportunity to speak as well.
Hey, Mr. Reed, thank you for being here. I look forward to meeting you. I'm in El Segundo, so I'm sure I'll have an opportunity to meet you. And I want to leave time for questions. I know we're a little bit behind schedule, but does anyone have any questions that they'd like to direct to Mr.
Olivia?
Yes. Yes, good evening, Mr. Reed. Thank you for coming, and welcome and congratulations on your position.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So I want to ask you about the rollout of what we're required to do. I understand you're going to be making individual appointments with the cities to actually come to our meetings. Is that right?
That's exactly right.
But I assume that there is work that we have to do before you come in terms of preparing the citizens. And my question is, do you have any messaging that you have prepared that we can roll out to our citizens?
Absolutely. EJ and his team have considerable messaging and collateral that we can furnish to make this, preparatory work, seamless. So EJ, let me turn it over to you to kind of share what some of the resources that we have that we can make available.
Yes, thank you.
EJ, also, would you talk about our Environmental Services Center and how we're already doing that with you?
Yes, I was just going to say that the Environmental Services Center is our biggest partner as far as outreach goes, really educating the public. But two things that I would like to mention. One, we'll be contacting your cities to schedule the city council meetings. And at that time, we'll work with your staff to provide outreach materials to your residents. And then one of the things that Greg included in his presentation, and this is perhaps the biggest and maybe the most important thing about getting the word out, is utilizing a coordinated effort with our outreach. And we know that each of the cities have different opportunities, whether it's a banner opportunities for street banners or electric signs or even billboards that are city owned. Anything that you have, we can provide materials for you to really educate the people about drought awareness and what they can do to educate them about programs to really decrease their demand. So they'll be, we're happy, we'll help any city that needs or wants it. And we will tailor all of our messaging to your city.
Excellent. All right, that's going to wrap it. Thank you both very much. Appreciate you being on.
Okay, Steve Zuckerman didn't have a question?
He took his hand down.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to COG programs, the nominating committee report, which was sent separately in the chat function, correct, Jackie?
Yes.
Okay, do you want to talk about this one or have staff talk about this, Jackie, please?
Well, the nominating committee met and recommended, what the purpose of tonight's meeting is to open the nominations. We're not closing them tonight, we're just opening them. And the officers, the nominating committee is recommending certain, John Cruikshank, who's our first vice chair, to move up to chair. Cedric Hicks, who's our second vice chair, to move up to first vice chair, and Rodney Tanaka from Gardena as would be our second vice chair. And then Drew would be the immediate past chair. That's the nominating committee's recommendation for our officers. If those of you that can recall 2 years ago, we did have previously, until last year, we had 4 at-large members that were designated to be on the steering committee in order to ensure a quorum. This started about 5 years ago, I think, and those 4 designated members were chosen at this time by the nominating committee. The nominating committee is asking that this be considered again and that the board discuss it. In the nominating committee report, and Natalie, I don't know if you can share the screen, but I wanted to point out, in the nominating committee report, there is a chart that talks about the 4 members and how often they attended, because the purpose of designating 4 special people, we've had at least 9 people coming to the steering committee as an irregular basis. But the 4 people are supposed to commit to attending. If you can go up to the chart, down to the chart, Natalie. And you can see from this chart that since obviously the year of 21-22, there was nobody, it wasn't applicable, we were on Zoom. But in the years that we were attending in person, there were only in the first year did all 4 ever attend. And frankly, we all forgot about who the 4 were. So I know the nominating committee would like to discuss whether we should add the 4 at-large members back. It is staff recommendation that in the last 3 years, we've had incredible attendance at the steering committee, and that we do not think that 4 people should be specially designated. So if you go to recommendation, the recommendation is to receive the report tonight, open nominations from the floor, and discuss the need for the 4 at-large members.
Yeah, and I'll just add, Jackie, that I was involved with Olivia before I went out of town on the nominating or in the nominating committee that and was certainly in favor of and recommending Rodney Tanaka as the second vice chair. I was not involved in the 4 at-large nominees, and having read the memo and remembering being on the COG when we had the at-large steering committee members, I'm not sure that I agree with having 4 steering committee members at large. I'm not quite sure what purpose it serves. So I just want to put that out there, that was one part of the conversation that I was not involved in, but I was certainly involved with Olivia on the first part regarding Rodney.
May I interject?
Of course, yeah.
So the thought was that we had chosen 4 people who would commit to coming to all the steering committee members. These people would be in the pipeline for leadership. So we assume that we understand that that no one actually has to come. But the commitment, if you make the commitment to come to the steering committee, we assume that you're very, very involved with all of the programs of the COG. And we wanted people like that. So we actually recommended 4, but only 2 accepted the commitment to come to all of the steering committee members. And those were Barry Waite and Bernadette Suarez. And we wanted to see them actually appointed to well, first of all, the board has to agree that we want to go back to the practice. And if we go back to the practice, we recommend those 2 at least to be in the pipeline, because we feel that people who are making that kind of commitment should be in the pipeline for leadership. And I think that that was our thinking as far as having the 4. I'm throwing it out to the board to see if the board agrees with this, with what we wanted to do here.
Hey, Olivia, thanks. I wasn't involved in that, so I appreciate that. That makes sense to me, that rationale. Thanks for sharing that. We'll go to John. I think John has a comment or a question.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. First of all, I'm very honored to be considered to be nominated for chair for next year. I appreciate that. And going to the steering committee, I think that having so many people attend is great. I think the debates and discussions we have are robust, and it leads to a more streamlined board meeting as of tonight. So I hear what Olivia just said, and that kind of makes sense to me, but I think you could choose any of the people that have been attending regularly and have them move up onto the executive boards. So I think I agree with staff's recommendation in regards to not having 4 people at large and just allow people to attend.
Thanks, John.
Bill Uphoff has his hand up.
Oh,
Yeah, I just want to reiterate what John said. I think, you know, if we didn't have adequate participation at the board meetings, and I understand the potential need to have 4 at-large directors. But if it's not an issue and we've gotten adequate representation at all the meetings, and I'm not sure the need to have a specific 4 at-large directors. Thank you.
thanks, Bill. Any other comments? Because we could someone can make a motion to either approve the 4 at-large members or not, or the other way, keep it as is. Any other comments or questions before we do so? I'm not seeing any. Would someone like to make a motion specifically regarding the at-large members of the steering committee?
Yes, I make a motion that we approve the going to having 4 at-large steering committee meetings, 4 at-large steering committee members that are chosen by the board.
Thank you, Olivia. Do we have a second?
I'll second it. Suarez.
Thanks, Bernadette. Any further discussion? Okay, let's see. Dave, I'm going to defer to you to take the vote, please.
Okay, let me see. Anybody opposed? Well, let me just do roll call. That might be a little bit easier
I
on,
think so.
on this one. Okay. El Segundo. Oh, sorry. Is there anybody from Carson?
Oh,
No Carson. Okay. El Segundo.
tough one for me, Olivia. No offense, I'm going to go no on this one.
Anybody from Gardena?
No.
Hawthorne?
Yes.
Hermosa Beach?
Yes.
Inglewood? Lawndale?
Yes.
Lamita? Wade is our delegate.
Yep, and that's a yes. Excuse me, I had to step away. We just had an accident right in front of the house. So a couple of pickup trucks evidently decided to get a little too close. So there is 100 feet of debris scattered all over. A little too exciting.
LA City, not present. Manhattan Beach?
Yeah, I think this is important for succession, so I will vote yes.
Anybody? Palos Verdes Estates? Rancho Palos Verdes?
No.
Redondo Beach?
Aye.
Rolling Hills? Rolling Hills Estates? I think she stepped off.
No.
No. Torrance?
No.
LA County District 2?
Yes.
And LA County District 4?
She's not on, I don't think.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 yeses. 1, 2, 3, and 4 no's for my count.
Yeah, that
Okay.
was my count as well.
Okay.
And by the way, John, here's your platform promise. If you really want to get the official chair vote, 10-minute meetings max. Everyone's going to be like, John's our guy. I don't mean meetings, presentations. I kid. I'm just kidding. Those are some long presentations.
I did all right. I did all right, Drew, when you were gone.
I'm sure you did. Hey, full transparency. I share this with Jackie, but this is a public forum. But I think we can do a better job of presentations. The first 12 to 13 slides of the second presentation of the Metro were completely duplicative to what we had already been presented in the first one. So not putting anyone on blast publicly or meaning to do that. I just think we could do a better job with people's time when it comes to presentations themselves specifically. We do everything else so well. All right, we're gonna move on to, let's see, Jackie, we
Well-
don't need to do anything further on the open nominations, do we, or do we call
Well,
for open?
You have to
call
open, well,
nominations?
I think you formally open the nominations. You can just declare that. And then, since it was a 7-4 vote, the nominating committee, I suppose, is going to have to meet again to look for 2 more members. I mean, they have 2 and they'll have to look for 2 more.
And were the other 2 not identified, Olivia, just because we didn't have folks to point to from attendance, or why didn't we consider 4?
We did consider 4, and both of the other 2 that we asked were declined.
I don't think you have to have the nominating committee get back. Anybody can nominate themselves, or they can be nominated by another board member.
Well, we have to get them to agree. So
That's I realize, but I don't think you need to have a nominating committee to do
it's
that.
up to you. I'm not involved in the nominating.
What are the
committee.
bylaws, what do our bylaws say? Do they
Our
say we
bylaws our bylaws don't even include the 4.
Ah, yes, right, okay. All right, well, we're gonna open nominations for the floors officially right now. Any other
Okay, well,
nominations?
we can close, well, you don't need to take them now. We can close the nominations in June. Or you can take them now, I guess. It's up to you.
Yeah, if anyone has any, let's hear them now.
Mr. Chair, it's Stacy. What are we taking nominations for? Is it?
I believe this is for the 2.
No,
other
it's for
positions.
everybody. It's for
Oh, for
any
everybody.
office. Yes.
Yeah, so everyone, chair, incoming chair, first chair, second chair, and then 4 members of the steering committee. And what else, Jackie?
The only safe person is you, immediate past chair.
Lucky me.
So just any of the offices.
Okay, any nominations? Otherwise, we're gonna continue this till June.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that. Hybrid meetings, Jackie, please.
Okay, at the steering committee, it was discussed to recommend to the board a policy that if there are 4, unless there are 4 people that come to the steering committee in person, the meeting will be virtual. And unless there are 8 that come to the board meeting in person, the meeting will be virtual. Today's board meeting, we had, and the decision would be made 3 days prior to the meeting. This meeting, we only had 2 people that by the time of the 3 days before were saying they were coming in person. So that's why this is a virtual meeting. Obviously, this policy is only good as long as virtual meetings are allowed. So the recommendation from the steering committee is if there are, we need 3 days notice and you must RSVP. And if we don't get more than 4 coming to the steering committee in person or 8 coming to the board, they will be a virtual. Otherwise, they'll be hybrid.
Okay.
So we need a
Any
motion.
questions?
We need
Someone
a,
wants to move approval of that?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, Olivia. Any further discussion? Okay, anyone opposed? Great. Any abstentions? Okay, sounds like a sound policy.
okay. Alert.
Wait, are
I'm
we gonna
going to-
have cake or anything for my outgoing? Just kidding. I don't even want cake, but
You
maybe
can
some-
talk to, I think it was Christian that did have cake, didn't he?
No,
No, we delivered it to your door.
I got, oh, that's right, you did.
We delivered, so we.
I'll bring
surprised,
you cake, Drew.
Bring me a growler of beer. I'll be happy.
Okay.
Okay, let's see. Alert South Bay.
Okay, Alert South Bay is the most unbelievable onion we've ever tried to unpeel. And so we're hoping to bring it to you this month. We're bringing it to you next month. There's 2 things that are very interesting. Area G, the emergency preparedness that all of your cities belong to, except for Carson, is hiring a new director. And the more I have learned about Alert South Bay, I have asked the city managers to include as in part of the work scope of the new director running Alert South Bay. It's an emergency preparedness thing. It's not a COG thing. We've agreed to transition to the COG until Area G is ready to take it over. And I hope they will do that. So you're going to get a lot more about this next month. We will probably be approving contracts that will work in a transition mode. But the most exciting thing that happened is we did receive there's one city that has not been involved all this time, and that city is Lawndale. And Lawndale did contact me and say they would like to join Alert South Bay, which is largely because they do have to do this function. And so they might as well do it with all the rest of the cities. So we're now in the process of figuring out what that means to everybody's costs. And so, every time we do something, we have to redo it. So more next month. That's my report.
All right, great. And then SCAG REAP.
I'm going to ask
Great.
Jonathan Pacheco Bell, our regional planner, to talk about that.
Great.
Good evening, all. I have an update about our housing education program. And also Jackie asked me to provide a very brief update about another one of our REAP projects that we're about to finish, the first one that we'll finish next week. So I can keep that brief. The first update is about the housing education program. So the housing education program is offering for all of South Bay city leaders a forum, a series of 10 units of housing education. And the goal is to get our South Bay city leaders educated about state laws, density, and design for sustainable and affordable housing that meets our city's RHNA targets. This series will be conducted through Zoom, so it'll be recorded, and it'll be added to our COG website and YouTube pages, so it'll live on for anybody to be able to visit it and learn. There are 3 key activities for the forum, and I'll go through them really quickly. First is to convene an advisory committee to advise on content development. Second is to create the actual forum itself with a bench of experts, the subject matter experts who will deliver the training. And then third is to do the housing education webpage that will host all this material on the web. All of this is funded through SCAG REAP dollars for REAP purposes. And I'd just like to quickly explain how we're going to go about acquiring these services. So the advisory committee and the webpage are each allotted budgets that will not exceed $5,000 each. For the housing education bench of experts, all the presenters that we're procuring, each speaker will receive an honorarium of about $1,000 for serving as a subject matter expert in the unit that they present in. They'll be hired in clusters, and each cluster will not exceed the $5,000 limit that we have for micro purchases under our MOU with SCAG. And in total, all of the clusters would not go over $24,999, but it will very likely be even less than that. So we are recommending that our board approve this plan for the housing education program REAP activities as outlined in the memo that is provided. Additionally, we are asking that board members who are interested in being part of the advisory committee, or if they can recommend somebody from their city, planning commissioner, staff, for example, please send me names and contacts, ideally by June 27th, about a month from now.
And we're talking about planning commissioners as being involved in this as well. Your planning staff, planning commissioners, council members, and anyone in your community, I think, who you think might be helpful. Okay.
Great. So we need to consider this one for approval. Someone like to
Right.
move approval, or any questions or comments for staff before we do so?
I do have one question with regards to this. Is this just specific to the RHNA numbers, or is just housing in general?
It will address the RHNA numbers, Councilmember Suarez, for sure. It'll address RHNA and so many other topics, but it'll be broadly about housing affordability, housing sustainability. It'll include topics like design. It'll go much more in depth beyond RHNA.
Okay, because I know Councilmember Valentine had brought up her city faces very high rental, and she would like to see promotion for homeownership. That's the same thing in Lawndale. So I don't know if that's something that you could also take a look at.
Yeah, we have 10 units of education, and I'm looking at the units here, and I can see that maybe fitting in housing markets, for example. Yeah, we can, and this is where the advisory committee comes into play, where we have these units outlined, but they actually go in deeper and advise us on the topic. So I'll take that down, and if you're interested, let me know if you'd like to join the advisory committee. Thank you.
I do work in real estate, so maybe.
Excellent.
Jonathan, do you want to go on to SB 330?
Yes, we'll do, Jackie. I'll keep this brief. This is good news. So SB 330, also known as the Housing Crisis Act of 2019, is a law that will remain in effect until January 1st, 2034. So SB 330 does a lot, but I'll keep it very short to the particular project. It applies to new housing developments, which the law defines as anything with residential units only or mixed-use projects that have 2/3 residential square footage and or transitional or supportive housing. So SB 330 prohibits a city from approving any one of these new development projects that demolish any existing residential or protected units on site. That's the site that's part of the SB 330 application. And the only way around that is the project that's being proposed will have to replace at a rate of 1-for-1 the residential units that would be demolished if a project is being developed under SB 330. So it's crucial for an applicant, it's crucial for the city, it's crucial for the tenants who live at a site to know whether a project is one that involves protected units, because they would have to be replaced if they are demolished. So as part of REAP, we've developed an SB 330 protected units supplemental application form that directly benefits all of our cities. The form will help our cities implement this particular aspect of SB 330 with tracking the protected units that would be required for replacement. And it'll help all the applicants compile all the information and get it all there in one place for city staff to use when they're doing their development review to understand how a particular project potentially with protected units interacts with SB 330. So with this form, our cities are going to have a way to document residential units and protected units that are required to be replaced if they're going to be demolished under SB 330. But also the law provides for a tenant who's affected to have a right of first refusal to return to that new development. So this form also helps with that tracking. So this project is scheduled to be completed next week. We're all done. We got our project basically all buttoned up. We're going to be distributing it for sure to the 5 cities who signed up, but the form will also be available to all of our member agencies when it is ready to go.
This is the kind of thing that first of all, the community development directors asked for this. This is not something we even know about. So Jonathan has taken it and run with it. He's gotten a form done for all cities. It's been reviewed by legal counsel. So it's ready to go for all of your cities. And I just want to say to Lawndale and Rolling Hills, this is why we have a regional planner, because now every city has a form. So thank you, Jonathan.
Great, thanks, Jonathan. So we need to approve the housing education program activities plan. So would someone like to move approval of that?
So moved.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you, John, I believe.
Yep.
Okay. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you. Draft budget. Next item is really just, we're deferring this until June, more or less, Jackie.
Well, if the board agrees.
Yep.
Yeah, and I can go through the logic of reasoning. We just very briefly, we have a brand new administrative services officer. She's absolutely wonderful, but we really need her to be involved in the development of the budget. And so we checked with our legal counsel that if we can we hold off to possibly July if you have a lot of questions, but the idea is that we would bring the budget in June. If there's only minor changes, you can adopt it. If you want to hold it over for a month, we'll have a continuing resolution so that we can hold it over for a month and in compliance with our bylaws. So we need your approval for that.
Great. Any questions before we move to a motion? No. Okay. Would someone like to move approval of that budget process?
I'll make the motion, Suarez.
Second.
Thank
Armato.
you. Thank you, Bernadette and Stacy. Okay. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Great.
Okay. Next is Ronson Chu is going to talk about homeless issues.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. I'm really excited because the first thing I want to do is invite you all to a house party on June 29th. It's actually an interim housing, a grand opening celebration hosted by the city of Torrance. And yeah, we're really excited. We want to invite the board of directors to participate in the event. And we're opening it up also to the general public. It's going to be a 3-day event, June 28th, 29th, and 30th, hosted by Supervisor Han's office. So be on the lookout for that. You'll get an invitation. So want to put that on your radar, June 29th. The other thing we wanted to update you all on is client aid. If you remember, we have a new client aid process, but we also are carrying some of the stuff over from the last process. And part of the process is updating you on what's been going on in client aid. So far this year, we've had 11 client aid activities.
Ronson, you're sharing your email. I don't know what's going on here.
Oh,
Okay.
let's see.
You can see all the hard work that Ronson's doing.
Yeah.
All right, hold on.
I was
Just
gonna
thought he
stay
wasn't
silent
smack
and
talking.
just read his email.
Let's see.
So it's been an amazing learning for me about the client aid. There's so many other places that you're supposed to be able to get funding and they just don't work very well.
All right. So can you guys see the spreadsheet now?
Yes.
Okay, great. So we've had 11 participants, and they ranged from motel stays while recovering from COVID prior to moving into permanent housing, rental application fees, DMV fees, security deposits. We had one recently where the landlord just demanded that he gets the security deposit right away. He didn't want to wait for other interventions. As you remember, our client aid is kind of the intervention of last resort. And so we will step in if there's no other alternative. Out of the $55,000 we have to spend through the next fiscal year, we so far spent $6,000, and we have about $48,856 remaining. Of the 11 aid requests, 8 have already been housed, which is terrific. And the other 3 are in the rental application process, or they're looking for market rate housing. So just wanted to provide an update there.
And according to our client aid policy, this will be going on, I think, the consent calendar on both the steering committee and the board meeting, but we'll hear about it. Well, the steering committee might discuss it in more detail, but it will be on, we can always put it on the consent calendar in the board monthly, so you can see the progress and what we're doing with client aid. Go ahead, Gronson.
Cool. Great. And then the next update, Lori has an update on home share. Lori, you want to take it away?
Sure, thank you. And by the way, we got a client aid request a couple hours ago for an application fee. It gets the ball rolling. It's fantastic. So I'm pretty excited to share that in the month of May, we have 2 home share matches. And one of them is an older senior woman from Rolling Hills Estates. And she heard about the program in January. We did a presentation at the Senior Services Working Group meeting. And the Palos Verdes, Police News put it in their newsletter, and she found it. So the outreach we're doing is working. She contacted me. It took me 3 months to work with her. She was older, had tough time with the computer. But on June 1st, a 26-year-old young man is moving in, who's just moving out of his parents' house. So I'm pretty excited. And the other one is an 83-year-old gentleman who heard about the program from when Ronson and I presented it in person at the San Pedro Health Fair last October. And he's going to be renting to a 65-year-old woman, and that's me. So I am that 65-year-old woman who is going to be renting. I started paying rent in May. I'm in the process of moving in. So that old commercial about I'm not just selling the program, I'm living the program. I think that was for a hairpiece commercial, but anyway, I'm dating myself. So I'm just so excited about this. And I've told my staff, our staff, that I'm journaling the whole experience, what it was like moving in with a stranger, what I'm learning about, so that when I'm presenting the program, I now have a whole new perspective to share with people. And we also presented the program at the Gardena Senior Fun in the Sun event, and they were very excited to hear about it. So I think we're getting traction. Meeting people in person seems to be the trick. So I guess you can tell I'm excited.
Thanks.
Thanks, Lori. Yeah, Lori is just so great in terms of being brave and putting herself out there. So really love working with you, Lori, and learning about all your experiences. The last thing I wanted to do, a lot of times I'm here sharing data with you all, but I want to share like a really special story that happened this week with Lila O'Meara. As you know, she's one of our superstar outreach workers. And her very first client in 2017 was 405 Lady. That's kind of the name they have for her. You can always used to always be able to see her on Inglewood Avenue and the 405. And when Lila first approached her, she immediately got her in contact with the Department of Mental Health. But this lady was very service resistant and kind of chased them away. So for years, they were 51-50ing her, putting on 3-day holds. And then after those holds, after she got stabilized, there was no place else for her to go other than returning back to the streets. She would go in and out of jail due to some infractions that turned into warrants. But very recently, on her last 51-50 hold, they actually, I believe DMH was the service provider. They actually submitted her to a court order intervention that then placed her into a locked facility so that she can be held for multiple months. That was able to stabilize her more than those 3-day holds were able to do. And after she got out, she then accepted service and accepted interim housing. So it's very terrific. Lila right now is working with Sherry Weaver at Harbor Interfaith to immediately try to get her into an interim housing place. There is some difficulty because she's been homeless for so long. She doesn't have an ID. And so we can't even intervene on her behalf right now because motels can't accept people without IDs. So she was at the DMV this week getting her California ID so that we can put her into housing, put her into interim housing and do that intervention. But I wanted to bring up the story because it really speaks to the need of folks with mental illness who aren't able to make sound decisions for themselves. And the recent legislation and the budget process for the care courts kind of speak to this and the need for more conservatorship. So I wanted to bring that up to share that with you all. Another thing that we've learned through this journey with DMH, we're kind of dumb about mental health, like Lori and I, and we're trying to get smarter about it in terms of all the interventions that are possible and the flow through the mental health care system. And so we've been meeting with a lot of mental health professionals, and we asked them a very basic question. And I'm sure you've all asked these questions of yourselves when you're driving to work or driving to your local supermarket, is like, why do you see the same person on the street corner every day muttering to themselves, and why isn't anyone helping that person? And so we asked this question, and the answer we get is very sobering. And the answer is like, chances are we are helping that person, but it's just we have no facilities to take them to. There is just a lack of mental health facilities. And so basically what's happening, and this is the analogy, is as if you need a surgery and your surgeon tells you, well, you need surgery, but there's no surgical bed, so we're going to do the surgery on the street corner. That's kind of like what's happening with our mental health, is that we're triaging mental health on the street corners because there's a lack of facilities. So we need to cite more facilities. We need more core interventions. And so just wanted to kind of share that with you all. Thanks.
I have a question, Ronson. What percentage of the cases would you say that you see are those which involve people with mental health issues?
The official statistic is about 1/3, but we think, there's varying degrees of mental illness. And then there are folks with personality disorders. And sometimes those are the folks that are also service resistant. And so, we think the true number is a lot higher. And becoming homeless itself can put you down that path into mental illness, right? I mean, just imagine trying to sleep at a bus stop and in the middle of the night, you're constantly being awoken by cars passing by. Your mental health will definitely deteriorate. So, and that's what we're seeing. And that's the problem, is that we're seeing people being homeless for longer periods of time. And so they are falling into this mental health category. And so, so we really need to intervene right away and get them off the streets, which is why I'm so kind of proud of our client aid program, because we are kind of intervening and making sure we're getting people off the street.
I also want to mention that there's an eviction flyer that Lori and Ronson have put together, and it's really great. I think we've made it available to all of your cities, but if you'd like a copy, let us know and we'll get that flyer out to you for people that are in threat of being evicted. Thank you, Ronson. Thank you, Lori. The next, if I can go on, the next would be the legislative committee report. And I think maybe we should start with the legislative matrix. The matrix that you got, there's a new updated one in the chat. And there's two things I wanted to draw your attention to that were on the consent calendar. One is there's a new support. We actually have a Regional Housing Trust Fund bill, which we're going to be talking about. That number is SB 1444, and it's on the matrix for support. And then on the matrix to oppose is AB 1737. And that's actually been, it was put on the opposition based on a recommendation from our Park and Recreation directors who asked the COG to oppose it. It turns out it has been amended since then, and we cannot reach the Park and Recreation directors. We think the amendment addresses their issues. So we'd like you to oppose per us finally making contact with the park directors. If they have no problem with it anymore, we would just drop the opposition, but it's a conditional oppose. So that's one thing. And the second bill that we've asked you to oppose is SB 1369, and that bill is now dead. If you look at the revised matrix, there are several bills that are in red. Those bills are dead. And one of those bills, unfortunately, is the Gibson bill, which is our micro mobility rebate, which is not moving through the legislature. So if you have any questions, we can answer them, but we need a motion to approve the positions on the legislative matrix.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. So
Drew, you're muted if you're
I seconded.
Oh, sorry, I was muted, wasn't I? Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I have an abstention. This is Suarez for just AB 1771, but the rest I'm in agreement.
Great.
Okay.
You said 1771?
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, before we get to the, and I like to call on Stacy, I think, for the Housing Trust. Before we get to that, I wanted to mention some just bullet points. You have, and I guess we have to approve this. The California League of Cities, Cal Cities, is requesting that all cities send a letter of support to the state to mandate to, I can't remember the exact amounts, it's in the letter, which is in your chat. One has to do with sort of replacement money for redevelopment, property tax issues, funding. Second has to do with state mandates, which they are saying, I think over $900 million hasn't been paid to cities for things that you've been mandated by the state. And the third has to do with funding for cities for organic waste, which is turning out to be a big responsibility with no funding. So we're asking you tonight to authorize us to send the letter supporting the Cal Cities request. And that would be the next thing.
Okay. Any questions or comments on that letter? Doesn't look like it.
Move to move forward on that.
Thank you, Mr. Waite. Okay, do we have a second?
Armato.
Thank you. Anyone opposed?
Okay.
Any abstentions? Great.
Next thing I wanted to mention is that senior staff met and discussed the work program and the fact that the state has a large budget surplus. And we are preparing to submit to our legislators a request for about $5 million to implement our work program items, which we don't have money for, like climate action planning and renewables, Hildy's idea of solar initiative. We're going to be asking for a special authorization for the COG so that we can move forward on these programs. And that's just an information item at this point. Another information item, board member Huff has asked us to take a position on the CPUC solar net metering. We've looked into it. It is incredibly complicated. And we've already sent a letter a while ago saying, please involve all the stakeholders. But today, Kim was on the phone for a very, very long time with the county, who explained how incredibly complicated it is. We are not ready to take a position as a COG because we don't feel we really understand all the nuances. But I wanted to ask you if you wanted us to have a speaker on this issue, if we can get one, for example, from the county. And so I see some people are nodding yes. So we will look for a speaker on net metering because it's coming, the comment period is over June 10th. We can also, if we can learn more before the legislative committee, I guess we can bring it there, but I just cannot comply with Councilwoman Huff's request because we can't sort this all out. And then the final thing I wanted to mention before we get to the Housing Trust is on July 14th is the next legislative briefing, and you're getting information about that. So Stacy, our star on Regional Housing Trust, do you want to talk about where we are and where we're going?
Sure. Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for David for pinch hitting potentially tonight. Thank you. I was at my son's basketball game a little bit ago, and then through so many meetings that David, you've made yourself available to. You are an absolute gem. Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to update. Yes, we do have a bill number. It's SB 1444. Really, you know, Ben Allen and his staff are really enthusiastic about it. Assemblymember Elmer Succi is enthusiastically co-authoring it, which is great news. I suppose we can work on getting more co-authors or other legislators to support, but we kind of need to have an all hands-on meeting with those two offices first, which we will try to schedule for this coming week. The update, I can't remember which cities were on board at our last meeting or what was updated perhaps at the steering committee meeting versus tonight, but I just really want to thank all of the cities that have been able to put this on their agenda so quickly, and to all of the staff too for really accommodating us to make sure that we could either be early on the agenda or later on the agenda, as they've conflicted at times with my city council meeting in Hermosa Beach. So far we have Rolling Hills Estates, Hawthorne, Redondo Beach, Hermosa Beach, Manhattan Beach, Rancho Palos Verdes, Lomita, and last night we had a 6-1 vote in favor with the city of Torrance. So George, thank you very much. Or that wasn't last night, 2 nights ago, sorry. Thank you for your support and for your council's support. I you know, we're grateful to have Torrance and all the other cities on board, at least supporting the legislation. And I think that's the update for now, David, unless I've missed something.
Nope, I think you got it all.
All right, so that's it, Jackie and Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Shall we go on? Kim has I think a very short environmental services report.
Yes, I just wanted to just restate that the COG is very active in working with, of course, the water agencies on the drought issues and going out to the community. We are meeting a lot in person. We will be bringing to you moving forward at your next board meeting a list of all those community events so you can see where we're at. You're welcome to come out and say hi. Colleen, of course, is on, I think still on the line here. She's going to be tweeting out to the public the places that we're at. And we really share all of the materials from our partners. It's not only water, it's transportation, it's waste reduction, and really trying to get the community to take action. The other thing that we were able to do with water is we got out 500 kits to the community, their water conservation kits. And so we took those out over the last year. We were able to get those out into the community. So that was very exciting. Martha continues to do cash for kitchen audits, also helping to save water, but also energy as well. That work is going on in your communities. And she may be reaching out to some of the city elected officials to help with walks like she's done in the past. I know, Olivia, that you were interested in that. And Mayor Boyles also, I know you were interested in that as well. We are working on green business certification for a few cities, and that working with the businesses, and that is the city of El Segundo, Torrance, and Hawthorne. We're working with those businesses, getting them to be certified. And then the last thing I wanted to let you know is that we've been doing a lot of work with the benchmarking, and this again is like an energy calculation that's done. And through our Civic Spark Fellow, we were able to submit reports for this on behalf of the city staff. And so we submitted like 7 reports to the state to meet the requirement for benchmarking. And hopefully that saved your staff a lot of time. So that work also took place over the last month. Any questions? Anything I left out, Jackie?
I don't think so.
Thank you.
We can go on to
Jackie,
South-
we got 8 minutes left. What are the most important things we should cover?
Well,
before
we have three, I think we have 3 or 4, we have just the rest of our reports, which are just a couple of minutes each. I'll go on to the South Bay Fiber Network. We're closing out work order 3. We're starting work order 4, which means our 2 Lomita sites will be done in mid-June with service to start shortly thereafter. The Regional Communications Center looks like it might be completed in early July. Work order 5 is the Torrance Airport engineering design and permit process with construction estimated for the end of the year. Staff is looking for opportunities to program the balance of funds. We have about $400,000. And if you feel that you have a site that you might be interested in, it might not be too late for you to contact me and let me know that your staff is interested in connecting a park or something else. And then we're also analyzing opportunities for connections to provide 24/7 access, which we might need for network expansion. We're working with other service providers for the cities of Carson and Torrance, where we have wireless internet service that we're targeting to underserved areas. And this is another opportunity if your city has any areas that you want to onboard with possible wireless internet service for your businesses, for example, please let us know. We're setting up those meetings. And please don't go out on your own, because I think we can do better if we work together. Next month, we'll have a contract extension on the agenda for our technical advisor, Magellan. And last month, or right now, the revenues coming in to our service provider are about $44,000 per month. So we're really getting, building up the South Bay Fiber Network, and it's going very well. There is a tremendous amount of money that the state and the federal government are putting towards broadband. We're planning to hold a workshop for cities. We hope that you and your staff will all come. Right now, we're looking tentatively at June 30th, but that date is not confirmed. And Gateway and San Gabriel Valley have already had such a workshop. We want to make sure we don't miss out ourselves. Next would be local travel network. David.
Sure. We're working with the RFP proposer to finalize the scope of work. We are working with, we'll be bringing that to the board next month for approval. Earlier tonight, we approved the funding agreement with Metro to pay for the work. And then we're continuing to work with your city staff in the 2 pilot corridor areas to finalize route segments and that part of the project. Over the summer, we'll be engaging with you and your cities on the wayfinding and signage development as we kind of brand that project. So I think that's about it in the last month.
We're going to Redondo Beach on June 14th,
Yeah.
the city council. The last 2 items are senior services and SPI working groups. So we'll start with Ronson. Any update on the next senior services? We had a great meeting this week on senior services.
Yeah, so we had Laura Trehill from the Department of Aging come by to speak on her plans and to kind of bring more age-friendly stuff to our cities. And then next, we already have an agenda kind of scoped out for our next meeting. We're going to have Scan Health come and present some pro bono services they provide for seniors. So that would be great.
Thank you. And then Hildy was at the SPI working group and will tell us what she learned.
Yeah, so I think that we've had 2 meetings since we reported back. In April, we had a meeting that was conducted by the Domestic Violence Prevention. It was about domestic violence prevention, and it was a presentation by the Redondo Beach Police Department's Domestic Violence Victim Advocacy Program. It was so informative, and this program specifically for domestic violence issues, it provides, she's willing to reach out to cities and provide training and resources so that your cities can engage in these kind of services for your cities. I would really encourage anybody that's interested to follow and learn more about what kind of resources you can be using in your cities, and hopefully that will be put in the chat. Natalie, I think there's information that can be put in the chat that you can find for
Yes, I
that.
can put it in the chat for everyone.
Thank you. And then in our May meeting, we had another fabulous meeting. This meeting was we hosted Sherry Farmer, who's the field deputy for the District Attorney's Bureau of Victims Services. It was like an extension of the next step in from our April meeting. And there's a whole program in the District Attorney's Office for providing assistance and resources and counseling for victims of violent crimes. She too is willing to come to any council meeting and present all the resources that are available through the District Attorney's Office. She has a mailing list that she also is encouraging any of our cities and elected officials to get more information, to sign up on that mailing list. And she also mentioned something that I just thought that we would all maybe want to encourage, which is they are collecting donations for victims of these violent crimes, and they're looking for socks and diapers, new clothing, and there's a very large need for beds and new mattresses to support victims of violent crimes. So again, there's tons of information, and I expect that would also be included in the chat, and I would encourage you to look for that. And then I'm just going to say these meetings are so informative. I would love to see better attendance at these meetings so that we can all learn how we can be better providing this information to our cities about these, about the topics. Our topics again are homelessness, senior services, violence, and mental health. So it's very applicable to everybody in all of our 16 cities. So I hope that we'll get better attendance. The meetings are the third Thursday of the month at 9 o'clock, and it's just an hour. They're efficient and they are very informative. So thank you.
Thank you, Hildy. All right. Nothing on agency reports, I don't believe. Any upcoming events and announcements?
Not from us.
Great. All right. Well, thank you everybody for your time, and I look forward to seeing everybody in June or at the steering committee meeting before that. Well, early June anyway. Bye now. Have a good night.
Have a nice
Thank you.
night.